This is the OnePlus 11 5G, and today we're here to answer the question, is it worth it? Let's find out. Now, full disclosure, OnePlus has sponsored a Denki video in the past, but this has no bearing on the actual review. In the few weeks that I've spent with the OnePlus 11, I've honestly walked away feeling it was better than I was expecting. A lot of that comes down to things like the price, how it performs, but really I've been evaluating it in the context of a lot of the negativity that people have been feeling toward the OnePlus brand as a whole. In my video on the OnePlus 10T, I talked a lot about the oppification of OnePlus. You see a lot of people complaining about Color OS compared to how things were with Oxygen OS back in the day. It might not be perfect, it might be gratuitously round and shiny, but none of that has real bearing on the actual way it functions in the day-to-day. But by far my favorite thing about this phone is the price. Starting at $700, you get the newest flagship Snapdragon chip and a lot of quality of life features that make it a worthy contender in 2023. I'm getting just a little ahead of myself though. I want to talk about this thing front to back, and we'll start with the physical design itself. This OnePlus 11 feels very premium in the hand, though that's not really a high bar at this point. I feel like any company can make a phone with aluminum and glass on two sides, and especially at this price point, that's kind of expected. Though I think the most polarizing thing about this is certainly the big camera array. I don't know how I feel about it, but let me know what you think in the comments below. However, what I can definitively say I like more is the fact that a good old friend is back in the alert slider. This means that while the phone is in your pocket, you can easily put your phone on vibrate, silent, or ring, all without turning on the screen. This after OnePlus took it away with the OnePlus 10T and everyone lost their goddamn minds. But hey, maybe they are actually listening to everyone, or succumbing to all the hate. I also want to talk about this display because I find it personally impressive. It's a 6.7-inch QHD Plus display with LTPO3 technology, which means it can ramp from 1 to 120 Hertz to save battery, and most importantly, it's very dense. 525 pixels per inch. A phone from recent memory that comes to mind for comparison is the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which tops out at 500 pixels per inch. And while that was an incredibly sharp screen, that phone's also $1,200. Now, that doesn't exactly mean a glowing review for this display on the OnePlus 11. At this price point, you can very easily put a 1080p class display on it, and I think most users would hardly notice a difference, and you'll probably see some benefits in battery life as well. Also, this screen doesn't get particularly bright. It's decent, but compared to some of its rivals, it tends to struggle, especially when you take it outside in the day. Circling back around, let's talk about core specs. So this phone runs a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, along with 8 gigs of RAM, which can be upgraded to 16 gigs of RAM with the 256 gig storage model. And when it comes to daily use, this phone is as fluid as you would expect out of any flagship phone these days. Opening apps is not only super quick, but especially with 16 gigs of RAM on the one OnePlus sent over, I can actually leave a lot of them open in the background without worrying about it bogging down the phone. I do a lot of photo editing on this in Lightroom Mobile. I also play games like COD Mobile as well. This phone did not skip a beat whatsoever. Another impressive spec is the battery and especially the charging. 5,000 milliamps is a lot of capacity to get you through a day, possibly 2 days of casual use. But most impressive is the 80-watt SuperVOOC charging with the included power brick. What this does is get you from 0 to 100% in 27 minutes. That is seriously quick enough to the point where if you have a moment in your day when you're not using your phone, you could just plug in, forget about it for a couple of minutes, come back, and be most of the way there. Now, the 11 might not have wireless charging like many other OnePluses in the past, but that's totally fine, especially since the super fast charging offsets that compromise. You know, what's funny is that whenever you see a big camera brand like Leica or Hasselblad make its way to a phone, it does not necessarily mean that you'll get image quality on par with the cameras those brands make. But in the scheme of OnePlus, historically, especially with the OnePlus OnePlus 10 Pro, the Hasselblad branding does make a difference. The overall consensus with reviewers is that the camera on the 10T, while having similar specs on paper to that Hasselblad camera on the Pro, fell short in overall image quality. And with this 11 and its Hasselblad branding, I think my expectations were pretty consistent with what the 10 Pro offered. They essentially went with this mentality of putting 3 main sensors in here. We have a 50 megapixel main shooter, 48 megapixel ultra wide with 118 degrees field of view, and a 32 megapixel telephoto.
For $100 more than the Pixel 7, do you think this has a camera that's in that same league as an overall package?
So what Austin's doing right now is taking a bunch of photos with the Pixel 7 and the OnePlus 11. Let's do this comparison. Let's see how it does. For context, we're obviously in studio lighting here, so kind of perfect conditions. And I gotta say, they both look great. While this is, on the Pixel, a more well-rounded photo with shadows that are lifted a little bit so that you're not losing the right side of my face, it's a pretty straightforward looking photo. Whereas with the OnePlus, it strikes a good balance between using HDR to even out exposure, but also takes liberties to add some character to the image, letting highlights extend a bit, which you can see on the left side of my face, and also warms up my skin tone for an overall pleasing look without being over the top. But I think where we'll see the biggest difference is with the ultra wide. Again, that's 12 megapixels on the Pixel and 48 on the OnePlus. And yeah, the OnePlus is a bit sharper, and I love the color on the OnePlus more too. I think that the camera experience on the Pixel has way better processing, it's reliable, and can get better photos more often compared to the OnePlus. However, I love the character of the images the OnePlus takes. Whether or not it's for you, of course, is subjective. And finally, let's talk about software, specifically with ColorOS. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I don't think it's all that bad. It's not as obtrusive as people make it out to be, it's fairly clean, it's pretty quick, but most importantly, there are good optimizations that OnePlus have made to make the experience better in specific tasks like, for example, gaming. With the OnePlus 11, much like the 10T that I tried a few months ago, this has the HyperBoost gaming engine. The thing is, when you see a feature like this on a spec sheet, it might be written off as something that's a gimmick. But in my experience, this gaming overlay can be pretty useful. Not only does it do a good job at being out of the way when you want to completely ignore it, but it's also fairly easy to access when you want to see it. Swipe down from either the top right or top left, and you'll get access to a bunch of tweaks, including performance and battery settings. It even has a neat function called Championship Mode, which automates tasks like muting notifications. You wouldn't want your banners getting in the way of your screen, and will also give you the best possible performance and lock you into the app until, of course, you turn it off, so that you can game uninterrupted and with the best quality possible. Okay, so we've run the gamut on the OnePlus 11, but that's all in a vacuum, and I think we got to compare this to other phones in the $600 to $800 range, because there's a lot to choose from, and it's very competitive. There's a little bit of recency bias here, but in my last video, I talked about the Galaxy S23, specifically the vanilla version. I gotta say, the OnePlus 11 gives you most of what that phone offers, but at a price point $100 less with a bigger battery, faster charging, a bigger QHD display. There's probably something else that I'm missing there. I actually do like the look of the S23 more. Yeah, I do. Is it really surprising though with this, whatever the this thing is? We also can't have this conversation without the Pixel 7. Now this normal one, again, costs $599, but the 11 actually splits the normal Pixel 7 and the Pixel 7 Pro. What you get on the OnePlus is a more powerful SoC. However, I think the software experience from Google is just a tad bit better on the Pixel. Optimization more than makes up the difference in raw power. There are obviously some Pixel exclusive features that you'll miss out on with the OnePlus. And again, you arguably get better, more reliable cameras. All this considered for $100 less. There's also the Pixel 7 Pro, which is a more one-to-one comparison if we're talking about the camera specs. Which one you should get really comes down to personal preference, especially with the differing philosophies between these two phones. But now that a Pixel and OnePlus are once again in the same conversation amongst the best flagships around, it's really cool to see. There are also countless amounts of other brands that make Android flagships, like Asus, if they happen to continue the Zenfone lineup in 2023. A sequel to the 9 would be absolutely epic and would definitely go toe-to-toe with this. And of course, there's also the iPhone, which I know is a little bit taboo for some of you watching, but the standard iPhone 14 does offer a pretty compelling value proposition if you're looking for a simple, clean experience with years of updates down the line. So to wrap it up, if we're talking about the OnePlus 11 in the scheme of a Galaxy S23, a Pixel 7, and an iPhone 14, it's hard to deny the value at $700 and all the features that you get with it. The power, fast charging, the big battery. What it really comes down to is how much you trust OnePlus as a brand. If you can get over the preconceived notions of what Oppo are doing to influence that brand, then I think this is the most compelling product that I've seen from OnePlus in a while, and probably deserves more respect than what salty OnePlus fans are willing to give it. But let me know, what do you guys think of the OnePlus 11? Would you buy it? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks again for watching this video on Denki channel. I'll catch you guys later.